accidents in which corporations have had clear, repeated histories of ignoring and flouting safety laws. A few years ago, I wrote a lot about the Sago mine disaster, in which many miners were killed when there were clear violations of laws that requiring maintenance of explosion-proof barriers. Those laws were flouted. Many miners died, 14, I believe, in that case. But there was no meaningful punishment. None of the responsible executives served any prison time, and none of them even lost any money personally. It was the corporation paying, again, tax-deductible fines. So again, when we had a similar occurrence a few weeks ago in West Virginia, Massey Corporation, Don Blankenship, CEO, there was incontrovertible evidence that this man had instructed his subordinates to sacrifice safety for maximizing output, maximizing profit. There's no argument. So the question is, what's going to be done about it now? Are we going to have a government body that does a study that comes back a year later after everyone's largely forgotten about it, once those names and faces have just faded into statistics, and announce a handful of incremental changes, such as we saw after the Sago mining disaster, that nevertheless allows people to be sacrificed, lives to be sacrificed in the name of maximizing corporate profit again? You know, these ideas are not just abstractions. We're not just talking about principles here. We're talking about human lives, because allowing corporations to wield constitutional rights kills people in many different ways, some indirectly, as with car crashes, as with mining explosions, other times indirectly, as with environmental pollution, release of toxins, and many others. So the question is, what are we willing and able to do to change that kind of situation? Because without us building this movement from the grassroots up for change, what comes down from Congress, what comes down from President Obama in response to the Massey incidents of corporate manslaughter in West Virginia mines, corporate manslaughter carried out by automotive corporations and many others, is not going to be the kind of systemic change that will prevent it. It'll be the kind of change that appeases people, that diffuses the anger enough to keep on maintaining the status quo. So, as I said, I think the most important part here is you all starting a dialogue here in the community that hopefully can lead to a strong presence here in southern Colorado that can be part of this growing national movement. There is one of the newest members of Move to Amend is called Colorado Move to Amend, based in Denver, but from folks who want to work with everyone throughout all corners of the state and build a statewide movement here in Colorado. So certainly want to encourage, also talk to us about how to connect with the folks up at the northern end of the Front Range about broadening your efforts. So I don't want to sound too negative about everything here, because I am very hopeful. What we have seen after, Reclaim Democracy started up back in the late 1990s, and we spent many years saying, we need to amend the Constitution to revoke corporate personhood. And the response, we've always got a trickle of interested people who have been involved in activism for years, like myself. I've been involved as an environmental activist in many different ways, in issues for years, and came to realize that, the battles we were fighting with huge amounts of time and energy expended usually were ones where victory was just maintaining the status quo. And yet the defeats tended to be permanent, involving long-term harm. And so came to recognize the need to really change the rules of the game, because the game under the current rules was a losing proposition. So I'm truly inspired to see the response that's happened in recent years, and especially since the Supreme Court decision that really, in January in Citizens United, that really has led a lot of people to want to get involved in a real way for the first time. And it's very inspiring also to hear from Laurie and hear about the ACLU, who we've been on the opposite side of in many cases. In the Caskey v. Nike case, back in 2003, Randall v. Sorrell, another major campaign finance reform case a few years ago involving the right of the state of Vermont, citizens there to set limits on campaign contributions. We've unfortunately, despite having had great respect for the ACLU's work in other realms, found ourselves as antagonists in many of those cases. So it's wonderful to see that folks within the ACLU are recognizing, hey, something is really out of balance here. We need to have an open mind as we consider some of these issues. So let's open things up. I think we're going to have Tari and